All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's noon Central Time, week time for our weekly demo with unSkript. So today, as we did last week, and we'll continue doing for a number of weeks from now forward, is we set aside this 1 hour to do what we call kind of, let's think of it as a lunch and learn type scenario or situation. We're bringing forward use cases or problem areas that SREs and tech support folks are running into as we talk to folks out in the marketplace, and then showing how unSkript can really deal with some of those challenges or problems, just trying to do everything we can to help to reduce the amount of work and busy work that happens on that put on the shoulders, frankly, of the SRE and tech support community in organizations, especially in those companies that are really pounding deeply into the world of the cloud, public cloud, Kubernetes, so that kind of cloud native build, if you will, for their products and services. So today we're going to be talking, Doug again from unSkript is going to be talking about a little bit something different than we did last week. Last week we talked about cost in AWS and the resources and how we can kind of look into those different resources that are being used and potentially see where we could be getting some cost advantages from. And then this week we're actually going to dive back into AWS and look at the concept of tagging. And a lot of companies are looking at using tagging or are using tagging much more effectively in their infrastructure today, just for a variety of reasons. But Doug's going to go into that a little bit more and show you how unSkript really looks at this idea of tagging and helping organizations to, again, remove some of the busy work that's involved in and helping SREs and other folks in DevOps to more effectively use the resources that are available to them or shut them off if they're not being used in some way, shape, or form. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and Doug's going to lead us off and take us through it. So with that said, Doug, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for the great introduction. So actually, tagging does have a little bit of a cost optimization. It can have a little bit of a cost optimization bend to it. But, when we're building stuff out in the cloud, we end up with tens, hundreds, even thousands of resources out at AWS. And after a while, you just have this long list and you're like, well, what the heck is this one being used for? And why is that one being used for? And what are all these things? And, give it a couple of weeks, a couple of months, nobody really remembers because they, what's instance ID random number generation that's 12 letters long, and nobody really knows. And for cost reasons, it might have been something that a developer spun up and they were just doing an experiment, and then they forgot to turn it off, or their experiment was done and they moved on to something else, but it just never got turned off. And so one of the ways that people do tagging is so you can identify what's out there and know what's really important and what maybe isn't quite as important. So we're going to talk about tagging resources. I have 3 RunBooks that I've built with unSkript that will help understand and show how you can use unSkript to do this. One of the problems with tagging resources is, again, if you've got hundreds of these and you have to just click through the console, right? Find this one, add the tag, key, value, enter, next one, key, value, right? Tedious, slow, annoying. So we're going to use some RunBooks that are help make this a lot faster and more efficient. All right, so we've got 3 RunBooks. The first one I'm going to do is we're going to look for all of the resources that don't have tags, right? If there are no tags at all, clearly we need to add some tags to them so that we can begin that process. The second one we're going to do, I was going to make this go iteratively, but we're going to go to all 3 at once. The next one is find the resources that are about to expire. So this sort of goes into that cost thing. You can add an expiration tag. So when you create something at AWS, you have to give an expiration tag. So if it's something that's crucial and essential for the company, maybe you put none, or you say 2026. But if you're just doing an experiment and it's a 2-week experiment, you can say, this thing can go away. It's the beginning of June, maybe just say July 1st. And so you give yourself, not quite 30 days, but a little more than you think you need. And then, July 2nd, that thing can just get deleted away because you'll be done with your experiment by then and it's not important. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to have a runbook that'll help you update tag values. So you could imagine like if there's an owner tag and you have all, who owns all of those resources, but somebody leaves the company, maybe you need to update that so it's not owned by guy or gal who just left. You want to update it to Doug or to Rob so that, hey, Rob, now you're the owner of this, right? So at least, you're aware that, this was owned by Sally and now it's owned by you because, Sally's no longer with the company. All right, so let's go through those runbooks because that's what we're here to do. Okay, so I am here in unSkript. And this first one we're going to look at, I'll just make the screen bigger here, is we're going to enforce tags across all resources. And so my input parameters here is that we're going to look in the region US West 2 in AWS. The tag we're going to look for is the owner tag, who owns these resources. And then if there is no owner, we can tag them with Doug. So let's just walk through it. Here's a description of what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find all the resources that are missing that tag. So I'm going to run this, and it's going to make a call out to US West 2. We can actually go to the configuration here. It's going to go to the region, which is this variable up here, region. And it's going to find all the ones with the key owner. And it says there are 2 resources out there that are missing the tag owner, and we can fix up to 20 of them at once. So now you can sort of see a headline of what we're going to see here, but I'm going to run this just to make sure that the data is up to date. But as you can see, there are 2 resources here that don't have a tag owner. And as a preview to sort of what we're going to be doing in a second, they're S3 buckets that don't have tags. One of them has expired and one of them is about to expire. So what we can do here is select which ones we want to tag with the owner, and the owner again is that input parameter of Doug. So let's just do one of them. And so we're going to say I want to assign this Doug expired S3 bucket to the owner Doug. And then the last step here is to attach that tag to the resource. And so what this does is it reads in the list of resources, the ARNs, A-R-N. I'm not sure how people pronounce it. I'm going to say ARN. Makes me feel like a pirate. It takes this list of ARNs. It's going to put the tag owner, give the value Doug in the region US West 2. So if I do this, it will complete the process. And we can go back up to the top here and rerun this. And it'll just say there's only one resource missing the tag owner. And you'll notice that I don't have the grammar fixed in here. It's going to say there are 1 resources. I think we can deal with that. And when I run this now, it's only going to list that one because I have tagged that other resource, right? The one that was expired, I just tagged it. Now, this is running this manually, right? So now I'm attaching tags to the resources. The other way you could run this runbook is you could run it automatically. You could run this on a schedule and set up a schedule to run this. If that were the case, you would be running it automatically and you couldn't come in here and do the clicking and add resources. So this would run, nothing would be checked. So no tags would be attached to any resources. This would run and nothing would happen. But what would happen is this last one would run. And if I run this is going to send a message to Slack. And what it's going to say to Slack is, hey, there are X number of resources missing this tag in your AWS account. So if we come over here to Slack, it's on the wrong thing here. Right, I just sent this, it's 1:14 Eastern. It says there are 1 resources missing the tag owner. Come back to this runbook to add the tags, right? So this is now something that you could run daily if you're going to enforce that every single resource has an owner tag, you could run this daily and send an alert to the team that there are resources missing the tag, the owner tag.
So Doug, just a question here
Yeah.
for myself and the audience listening to this. The the script that you had written above, or the text you had written above, was we
Mhm.
can fix a max of 20. Was that just an arbitrary thing that you popped in there, or was that something unique to the tool here?
It is not unique to our tool. What it's unique to is actually this API that you use to AWS. Um, when you're sending a list of ARNs with the key and value pair to the region, and AWS right here has a limit of 20.
Okay.
So if you had, I don't know, 6,000 things without the owner and you wanted to assign them all to Rob, it would fail because you can't do 6,000 at a time. You can do 20 at a time.
Okay. And
Um,
then the second question that came up for me here was, as you're kind of going through this, this is very much as you said, you could schedule this to run, and then let's say 9 o'clock every night or something like that, it would then post a message to Slack to say, hey, here are the resources that need to be fixed. Go here to fix them. That's how this RunBook has been set up. Is there ever a way that a RunBook could be set up to automatically fix them so that you don't have to manually go in and click, as you've set it up here, click the resource names to then add the tag of owner of Doug or whatever your remediation step is?
Certainly, we could build a run book that says, here is the ARN, and I want to assign this to Rob, or I want to assign it
Okay.
to Doug. We could automatically assign everything to Doug, but in that case, like, it's sort of like the principle is you want to assign it in a way that is actually owned by the person
Right.
who's building it. And if everything's assigned to me, that it's not exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to actually say, like, Rob is building all this stuff in AWS. Why is it assigned to Doug? We don't want to automate it in a way that doesn't make sense. We want to make sure that it's,
which
now,
is a which is a classic kind of challenge within the SRE tech support world, which is, a lot of people talk about automating the remediation of problems, but in reality, a lot of organizations and people don't want that. They want maybe automated diagnosis of a problem,
right,
and then tell me what it is so that I can then go fix it myself, because I don't necessarily either trust the machine, or there's a little bit more work that has to be done to get somebody in this case to say, hey, I'm the owner, and
right,
maybe find who that owner is or what have you. So just kind of a point there that I've heard quite a bit in the SRE community over the last couple of years for sure.
right. Yeah. I mean, if there's 20 devs on the team, we don't want to assign them all to Tom or
Right.
to Jane. We want to make sure that Jane gets hers and Tom gets his, and that way, we understand what's going on. So that's sort of the reason why, in this case, we can send an alert saying, hey, there's a problem, go in and fix it. We could even change this to like list the different resources that are missing the owner tag. To maybe like help jog people's memory, like this one that was created. And some of them would be easy. Like in this example here, this one is called Doug, right? I think I know who owns this one because in the naming, it has the person's name. So, it could be that you run this, and if you have a naming convention for all of your resources, you could go in and be like, I'll just assign this one to Doug. I'll assign this one to Rob. I'll assign this one to Tom, right? And
Yep.
make your way through it that way.
Okay. If you want to move on to the next one, that'd be great.
Sure. So the second one is looking at resources that are about to expire. So it's going to look very similar to the runbook we just did. The first step is we're going to find all the resources with the expiration tag. And so in this case, in our in this AWS environment, there are 4 of them. And we can look at the, like, so we have this secrets manager and it expires on the 24th of this month. This one expired in January. This one expires next week. And this one expired, 3 years ago, right? So if something expired 3 years ago, it probably shouldn't be around anymore. before you delete it, you should probably make sure that there's no data in that S3 bucket that is useful. But in this case, I just created a bucket. I created it yesterday, but I just added a tag saying that it was going to expire in 2019. The input parameters here, again, is we're looking in US West 2. We picked our region. And then because different companies might have different names for their expiration tag, right? You might say good until, or, I don't know. You might have a different name for it. In this case, I named the tag expiration, and these are the 4 items with that expiration tag. And then I said, give me all the, so these are all the resources with the tag. I want to find the ones that are going to expire within 15 days. And so in that case, 6/24, today is 6/7, so it's just outside that window. So now we can filter for those resources that expire within the next 15 days. And if we look at this list, there's 1, 2, 3. The one that expires on 6/24 is outside of our window. So we're only looking at the ones that are about to expire, because those, or the ones that have expired. And now what we want to do is maybe we want to update these. So this is the next step, is giving us the opportunity to buy ourselves some runway. Let's kick out the expiration date. This is not something you can do with bananas, but it is something you can do with your AWS resources. So what you can see here is now we have this list, but it's set up in a table, and now we've got a date picker. And so what's really cool about this is maybe we don't want this one to actually expire in 2019. So we can click the date picker, and we can say, let's let that one go to, let's let it go to November 2023. So what's happened now is that expiration list has now been updated, and this date is changed. This step is not really an important part of the RunBook, but it's just neat to see that list, the expiring list, has dynamically updated. So I'm just going to run it so you can see that. Now you can see that Doug expired is expiring at 2023. So this action here in our unSkript RunBook is dynamic, and any changes you make actually changes the output of this action. And so now what we can do is we can attach these tags to the resources. And so what's going to happen here is we're going to send this update. This one will be unchanged. This one will be unchanged. But this one is no longer, in the danger zone of, being expired. So I will run, what this one does is it's now going to loop through this list. So we have the expiration tag as expiration. We know the region. And it's going to iterate through our expiring list with the ARN or the ARN and the expires, which is this new date. So I'm going to run that. It's going to run 3 times because there's 3 items in that expire list. You can see here it ran 3 times. If we now go back up to the top and rerun this RunBook again from the very beginning, we will again still have 4 items with the expiration tag, but we can now see that this one has been updated, right? This was expiring in 2019. It's now expiring in November of this year. If we find the resources that are about to expire and then build this table, now there are only 2 of them for us to look at. So we have now gone through and, rescued that resource from being on the expiration list. And, if you're on the expiration list, in theory, you're on the chopping block for being removed from the AWS instance. So this is how I would run this interactively. Again, we could run this on a daily schedule or a weekly schedule. I had this set for a 15-day window. Maybe you do a 7-day window, you run it once a week. And so this last step, just what it'll do is it'll post to Slack. There are 2 resources that are going to expire in the next 15 days. come back to this RunBook, the AWS resource is about to expire RunBook, to manually update these dates to avoid the deletion of your important resources. So again, in this case, you could run this one on a schedule and it'll send an alert to the team that says, hey, stuff is about to expire, go take a look. Or you can come in and run it manually and change those dates if you need to.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the third one.
All right, the third one. So this one is, again, same sort of ideas here. What we're going to do is we're just going to update tags. And in this case, we're going to update the owner tag. Again, the idea that maybe, Doug was working on project X, but now he's handing it over to Rob. So now I'm going to assign all those resources to Rob because I don't want to have to deal with them anymore. So again, we're going to get all the resources with the owner tag. And you could see what the output was when I ran this earlier today. There are 303 resources with the tag owner. It said 302, but if you remember, about 15 minutes ago, we added a Doug owner. So it went up to 303. Again, we can fix a max of 20 because that last action where you're updating tags allows you to update 20 at a time. So let's run the tag updater. This is going to take a second because we're going to build a bunch of checkboxes and fields for 303 resources. So, it's building, again, just like we had that date picker, this one is going to have a list of checkboxes next to each ARN and then the owner name. Right, so we can see all of them here. So who owns them? And then if we want, it says we can fix a max of 20 of them. And in this one, it won't actually let you pick more than 20. I can show you the code here. And I changed it for the video that it'll only let you select 5 entries. So if you actually look here, I have to run.
So while that's running, Doug, is there a way that you can kind of do a bulk update where it automatically keeps cycling through and just reassigning to an example I'm thinking of here is, I've come from the world of like identity management and whatnot in the past, especially AWS.
Right.
If you had a bunch of things assigned to you and you were leaving the company and I was coming into the company as the new person responsible, you might have an IAM system of some kind or HR system that's communicating to an IAM system that says that Doug is leaving. As soon as that happens, an alert goes out to other downstream systems to remove Doug from all these different systems kind of automatically. I could see that being a great use case here where maybe, again, an IAM system of some kind pushes out a notification to unSkript. unSkript says, hey, it looks like Doug's leaving. Let's kick off this update resource tags. And instead of me going in and manually checking all these boxes, just do it kind of in one bulk fashion.
I just wrote it down. I'll build that RunBook. That's a great use case. So absolutely that's possible. It's not built right now, but it would be very easy to, again, we could say get owner is equal to Rob, right? And so we could filter on, is there an owner tag? Does the owner tag equal Rob? Get all those resources. And then we could update all of those and assign them to Doug.
Okay. And then
so
in terms of in this case, there's only 20 at a time. So do you have to manually go in and check them along the way, or can we automate that process as well?
We could build a loop. Absolutely. Okay. We could have it loop through and just, loop through and, 20 at a time, Rob begins to disappear from the AWS environment and Doug's, load grows. So absolutely. And so in this case, remember, I set the limit to 5. So if I try to click a 6th one, it won't let me. And you can see down here it's throwing an error and it says, you've reached the maximum number. So it won't actually let you select more than 20. So you can't accidentally break the system. But in this case, what we can do is we can update this to right. We're just going to update these ones, showing that, I'm doing this during a video. And again, it's a really long list. So we can print that list and we can see that the value is now unSkript video for a bunch of them. I'm not going to change the one for Jashima because that's his item that he owns that. And now we can attach that to the resources. And so again, it's going to loop through 5 times, update the tags for all of those. And so now it's updated. So if we come back over here and we just get those resources again and then run it, you'll see that those first 4 entries all have video in the front of them showing that the tag was actually updated at AWS, which is sort of cool. Like it's just like one of those right away instant feedback, the changes you made worked. So there we go. We updated those tags. So, a bulk updater will be coming. And these RunBooks are not actually in unSkript yet. They're not in our open source, but I am opening a pull request later this afternoon. So they will be in the open source and our SaaS offering in the next release. You're muted, Rob.
Apologies. So that's it for today. I want to give a great thanks again to Doug for taking us through a couple different RunBooks here to solve some real challenges that we're seeing out in the wild around tagging and updating tags and resources and owners, so that organizations not only can be more secure in certain situations, but just also for cost optimization reasons as well in the organization that they're working in. So thanks for everybody for joining. And hope all the questions, the questions, if you do have questions after the fact here, please drop them into the YouTube video that'll be on our YouTube channel, and we'll get to those and get answers back to you as soon as possible from those comments and questions. We'll be back here again next week, same time, same day, Wednesday at noon Central Time, with a new topic for next week to again help folks in the SRE and tech support space just reduce the overall load of busy work that they have on their plates every single day. So thank you everybody for joining.